On Monday, I had you guys start drawing this. Still have that? And then we were drawing using a black pen or pencil, a bluish pen or pencil, a reddish pen or pencil, a greenish pen or pencil, and a yellow, tan, brownish pen or pencil. So just take a look at what you did so far, and I want you to tell your partner, what is it that we are drawing here? What are we trying to do? What are we trying to show? So go ahead and look over and then tell your partner. All right, can somebody raise their hand and tell me, what are we drawing? What are we going for? Ricky? This is the diaphysis of a long bone. Good. And in the diaphysis here, what do we have so far? Blood vessels and a nerve. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to zoom in because we're trying to diagram the Haversian systems. Can you say Haversian system? Haversian system. And then can somebody tell me what a Haversian system is? Griffin.
It's an individual unit that makes up compact bones.
You are on top of it, sir. A Haversian system is one Lego or building block we stack together to make compact bone. Okay? So what we're going to do is I'm going to zoom in here. So this area where you have the blood vessels, the blue vein, and the red artery entering into the compact bone, we're going to zoom in on that area here, okay? So since we have a red artery and a blue vein going into that compact bone, I'm going to redraw that red artery and blue vein. So I have my red pen here. I'm going to draw it over here. Here's my red artery, just enlarged now. And that red artery, when it enters into the compact bone, it actually branches off and it branches away and it runs along the length of the compact bone. It branches out little branches all over the place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the main branching off part that runs along the entirety of this area. So artery is going to run along the axis here. Red pen. And of course, notice you have that little blue vein there too. So using the blue, I'm going to draw that blue vein branch. And that blue vein is actually going to also split and run along the longitudinal section here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a black pen or pencil to draw this little edge of the compact bone. And turns out where we have these two vessels running along the length of the compact bone, it's actually found inside of a canal or a cavity or this little hole. This little hole houses the vessels and the nerve. It runs all the way through the compact bone. It also encases this branch right here. And this little hole or this canal or cavity where you have blood vessels and nerves, it has a name. So I'm going to use that black pen or pencil and I'm going to label it. This is called a Haversian canal. And what is inside of the Haversian canal? Blood vessels and nerves. And unfortunately, Haversian canals are only the names of canals that run longitudinally. If you have a canal running horizontally or transversely here, or from side to side, they have their own name. So any canal that runs from left to right, of course, it has to have its own name. So this canal here is actually known as Volkmann's canal. And it's the same thing as a Haversian canal, it just has a different direction. And throughout this compact bone, there will be multiple Haversian canals. So there could be another Haversian canal right here. And if there's another Haversian canal right here, that means we have to have another Volkmann's canal that connects this Haversian to this Haversian. So we could have another Volkmann's right here. We would have another Haversian here, another one here, another one here. They'd be found throughout the compact bone. Surrounding the Haversian canal are these little holes. So I'm going to use my black pen or pencil again. And I'm going to draw these little holes, empty spaces, that surround the Haversian canal. And these little holes are, or spaces, they're called lacuna. Well, this one's called a lacuna. If you have more than one, which we do, it's called lacunae. And all they are empty spaces that surround the Haversian canals. Can you say lacuna?
Lacuna.
And what do we say if we have many lacuna? Good. And it turns out the empty spaces have something in them. Inside of every single lacuna is a bone cell. So it's like a little room, a little chamber where you have cells living. So using green or greenish color, I'm going to draw a bone cell inside of each lacuna. So inside of this lacuna, I'm going to draw a bone cell here, and there's going to be a bone cell here and here. Also in this one's going to have one. This one's going to have one too. And every single lacuna is going to have a little bone cell living inside of it. So when the bone cell dies off, the lacuna or that space will still remain. So those little bone cells that live inside of those lacunae, those bone cells are called osteocytes. So you've heard of osteoporosis. The prefix osteo means bone. Osteocyte, the suffix cyte means cell. So that's a bone cell. And these bone cells, they have to communicate with each other. So they do grow these little parts, body parts or appendages, or these little projections that look like antennae, so that they can communicate with each other. So using that same green, since it's still the osteocyte here, osteocyte grow these little antenna things so that they can talk to each other. Basically, it looks like a whole bunch of ants running along your paper now, right? Or plankton, if you use green. And these little projections or antennae, they have their own name, of course, even though they're just a part of the osteocyte. These antennae are specifically called canuliculi. Can you say canaliculi? Canaliculi are just projections from osteocytes. They allow for communication. If you want to put in parentheses, they're kind of like antennae. Allow for communication. And what do you think the osteocytes are communicating with each other about? Maybe reproduction. So maybe if a whole bunch of cells die for some reason, then the other ones could be like, hey, let's start making copies of ourselves to patch up that area. Or they can also communicate with each other and tell each other to make more bone matrix. So using yellow or tan or brown, I'm going to color in the bone matrix. So every osteocyte has a job of making bone matrix. And the bone matrix is a whole bunch of stuff that fills up any gap in compact bone. So there are absolutely no gaps in compact bone. All filled by really dense, fibrous bone matrix. And we're going to talk about what bone matrix is made up of once we get back to the PowerPoint here. So for example, if you broke a bone or you somehow fractured it in any way, then these osteocytes will communicate with each other using their canaliculi and tell each other to make more bone matrix to repair that area. And in reality, surrounding each Haversian canal is multiple layers of osteocytes. So using my black pen or pencil, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw another layer of lacunae. And inside of each lacunae, what am I going to draw? Osteocytes. And each osteocyte has to communicate with each other, so they're going to grow, what are those things called? Canaliculi. And of course, an osteocyte's job is to make what? Bone matrix. So let's make sure your new osteocytes have some bone matrix made. Oh, should probably label the bone matrix here. Bone matrix. And when you have a layer of lacuna with osteocytes inside of them, each layer has a name. So I'm going to use my red pen, and I'm going to draw a little bracket around this layer right here. When you have osteocyte inside of a lacuna making this bone marrow, then that layer is called a lamella. How many lamellae do we have around the system? 2. So the plural of lamella is lamellae. So a lamella is just one layer of the Haversian system. So one more time, how many lamellae do we have here? 2. Good. So this is just a cross-section view. What you would have then is on top of the compact bone right here, you would have an aerial view of some more Haversian systems. So using your colored pens and pencils, I'm going to have you draw another system, okay? And the best way to draw systems, or Haversian systems, is to start with the very center of a system. At the very center, what do we call this hole again? Haversian canal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that black pen or pencil and I'm going to draw a Haversian canal here. And inside that Haversian canal, what are we going to have? Blood vessels and nerves. So I'm going to draw the top of a blood vessel. You're not going to see the side of it this time since this is a top view only. And then, of course, surrounding the Haversian canal, what do we have? What are those empty spaces called? Lacunae. So I'm going to draw a couple of lacunae. And inside of those lacunae, what do we have? Osteocytes. And then osteocytes are going to grow these projections. What are those called? Canaliculi. No. And the canaliculi are going to tell the other osteocytes, hey, we should make more of that stuff we usually make called bone matrix. All right, now what I want you to do is I want you to draw at least 2 more lamellae for this Haversian system. But while you're drawing it, I want you to practice saying out loud the things that you're drawing. So just pretend like you're talking to your neighbor. They're just not listening to you. Okay? If you need a hint, you can look up and I'll be drawing it too. I just won't be saying anything. So go ahead and start drawing and start talking to yourself.
That's lacuna.
Just pretend like you're talking to your partner. That's fine. You can still talk to them even if they don't like you. Keep talking. It's not enough just to know how to draw. You also got to be able to name it. Yeah, so you would have 3 lamellae total. at least 3 lamellae.
Possible one or just in total?
Total. What's up?
Do you want me to like make a section for the total of the network on this? Or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You could just label total.
Okay. Thank you.
Has the last lamellae of your Haversian system bumped into the other Haversian system yet? Okay, so you actually don't have any gaps between the systems because those last osteocyte layers there, they're going to make bone matrix in between each other so that you don't have any gaps. So that means this huge white space right here, what do you think's right here? Another system, and that means over here, another system, and they all have to smash up in there. The example I've been giving is layers help keep structure very firm. For example, what's something else that has a lot of layers?
Onions.
Onions. If I threw an onion at your face, would it hurt?
Yes.
Yeah, because onions are weirdly firm, right, when they're whole. But what happens when you take off just one layer of onion and threw it at your face?
You'd start crying.
You might start crying, yeah. But it wouldn't hurt very much. Because that one layer is so weak, but together, united, they stand. Sorry, too far. But yeah, so that layer actually provides for a lot of the strength of this ground or compact bone here, okay? That drawing that you just made, does it look exactly like this?
Yeah.
It
Yes.
should.
It was amazing.
It looks amazing just like this, right?
Yes.
So what you guys just drew, this little portion right here, that first Volkmann's canal that we drew was supposed to be this one right here. Notice the Volkmann canal connected to the Haversian canal. The Haversian canal has another Volkmann canal coming out the other side, connected to a second Haversian canal. And as you were drawing that second Haversian system that I asked you to draw on your own, you notice that at some point those layers would bump into your previous system's layers, and that's how compact bone is structured. Right here what they did was they pulled out one of the Haversian system and just like raised it so that you could see that it's just basically a whole bunch of tubes inside of other tubes. Okay? And that one set is a Haversian system or an osteon. Okay? So this is the aerial view from the top here, and this is a cut-through view. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at a couple of slides of real compact bone, but from the top. So you're going to see something more like this area or this area. And just like that bone from yesterday, how much did it resemble the pictures in your book? Or how much did that bone resemble the pictures that you see in the PowerPoint? Close-ish, right? But there were a lot of parts where you just couldn't recognize it, and that's how it's going to be maybe with the Haversian systems. Because this slide here is live, or not live, but real compact bone. And this would be just a top aerial view. Obviously not colored. Haversian systems aren't colorful. But can you kind of tell what's going on here? Do I have one system or multiple? Multiple. Can you identify where the Haversian canal is? Or maybe a couple of Haversian canals? Can you tell? Does anybody want to try to verbally describe one of the Haversian canals they see? Can you tell? Anybody? Sorry, we're going to try to get someone else to raise their hand. Thanks. Can anybody else Either try to verbally describe it, Lexi.
Is it that towards the left, not exactly in the middle, just below the middle, more towards the left, up, right there?
Yeah. So this is one canal. Can you guys spot another one? Top left, and there's actually some over here that have something in them. These ones are emptied out, but this one actually you can kind of tell. What's this right here, the little jelly bean thing? That's probably a blood vessel. Okay. And then you can kind of tell the lamellae that surround this Haversian canal here. Is it a perfect circle like we were drawing?
No.
No, sorry, I lied again. They're not perfect circles, but they are concentric. They are circles stacked around each other, or ovals stacked around each other. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in on this system here. Much better view. This looks a little bit more like your picture, huh? You're drawing. Okay, so this is a cleaner cut. So here you have, what is this hole? Haversian canal. So what would these little things be here? The osteocytes. Yeah. And the osteocytes live in these little spaces called the lacunae. Good. And the lacunae are little holes, which means you can't really actually see a hole, you see a cell, right? Like yesterday, the medullary cavity. What's in the medullary cavity? Yellow marrow, which means can you really see a cavity? No, because there's stuff in it, right? Same deal. There's a hole there, but there's stuff in it, so you can't really see the hole. You just see whatever's in it. Which means what is all this fuzzy stuff in between the osteocytes?
Bone matrix.
Bone matrix. Good. So all of those labels that you had for that drawing should be all of these words here. It's not enough to be able to just diagram it. You also have to be able to label parts of your systems. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about the bone matrix. The bone matrix is actually made up of two kinds of material here, organic and inorganic. Typically when we think organic, what do we think? Natural, so things that are naturally made in cells, such as collagen. Our body makes collagen, and that's what our osteocytes use to build the bone matrix. Collagen is actually a fiber, a protein fiber, and a fiber means anything with a kind of stringy texture or shape. And where else might you find collagen? Where else have we learned about collagen?
Lecture2.
What was in our last unit?
Skin.
Skin.
Yeah, that's what
So skin has this tough collagen protein as well. Bone matrix is going to have more of it. And like most organic things, if you heat it up enough, the protein will start denaturing or breaking down or losing all of their bonds. And so when you fry chicken or go to KFC, the chicken bone is actually fairly brittle. You can snap the chicken bone once it's cooked because that collagen is now all broken up. You also have inorganic parts in the bone matrix, which means things that your cell cannot make. Calcium phosphate your cell cannot make. And so where do you get calcium phosphate from since you need it to make bone matrix?
Food.
Food, and when you're a baby, milk. That's why milk is good for you. It helps build your bones. If you didn't have calcium, then your bone cells, your osteocytes can't make bone matrix. If there's no bone matrix to fill the spaces, what's going to happen to your bones? They become brittle, they can break, they're fragile now. Any questions so far? Clarifications? Just in case. All right. So we just talked about compact bone. That's the one that has lots and lots of layers we call Haversian system. Spongy bone is a little bit different, the structure. You don't need that much that many layers because you don't need that toughness. Instead, you need something to absorb shock a little better. So the structure of spongy bone, you have Haversian systems, but this time in a different formatting. They're not as tightly packed together. There's spaces in between, and that's where you're going to find the red marrow as well. And we're going to talk about spongy bone more tomorrow. By the way, there's a lab tomorrow. So what are you going to do tonight? Okay, good. Go ahead and start packing up if you're done. Not touching anything tomorrow, just microscope.
Okay, so no gloves.
Yes, not. You can bring gloves if you want.
Okay.
If you're scared of the microscope, so you can wear gloves. Yeah, totally.